Welcome to the bold analysis, and I believe that you are well today. Team Diaspora, how are you? Where are you watching us from, by the way? Is it Germany, US, UK, Nairobi, Siaya, Loitoktok? And by the way, I just realized I have quite some good number of viewers from the county of Lamu. So are you watching from Lamu? Now, the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna has issued a statement to President Ruto days after the president's handlers Oscar Sudi and William Kamket came out lecturing the country that if the country continues to reject President Ruto's power, we run the risk of actually having the president for more than 2 terms as stipulated in the constitution. And this statement came hot in the heels of a debate that have been in this country. In 2024, a section of legislators who are around the president told the country that in a constitutional change process, should we exchange the term limit of the president or not limit the president to only vying for 2 terms? And Edwin Sifuna released a statement, and I believe in his capacity as the ODM Secretary General and the Senate of Nairobi has a message that I want us to get here.
Some of the leaders that you've mentioned, and of course I saw what the Honorable Kamket said, and also the Honorable Oscar Sudi. The truth is that we know now that they understand that this thing, it is irreversible now. The damage that this government has done to its own reputation is irreversible. They know that there is very little that can be done between now and 2027 to reverse the fortunes of this regime. So you can see that they have become irritated, agitated. The young Kenyans on social media have succeeded in getting under their skin. If you go to a function and speaker after speaker is only talking about social media and curtailing the freedoms of the young people, lecturing us about respecting other people, and yet these are some of the vilest politicians on the mic. They themselves cannot show you the respect that they want other people to show them. So for me, it is the clearest indication, and I want Kenyans to take confidence in the strength of our constitution to defend itself. Nobody can stand somewhere and tell us they will manufacture another president for 24 years. It will not happen. Honorable Kamket should be told it will not happen. This is not 1980. This is not the generation that they used to sell fear to. The Kenyan of today is a Kenyan who understands the constitution, their rights. They know for a fact that you cannot impose yourself on Kenyans. I am telling you, the only way for any elected leader to win re-election is to do the things you promise to do for Kenyans, is to make the lives of Kenyans better. Now that they understand that it is going to be impossible for them to deliver on any of the promises that would make Kenyans look at them favorably, they are now openly threatening to violate the constitution and the rights of Kenyans and to try and force themselves upon the people. As a person who was in the campaigns in 2022, when we were being backed by a sitting president, these are not strange pronouncements. They are very familiar, because there are people in our camp who used to speak the way Kina Kamket are speaking and telling the country, oh, hii kitu imeenda, oh, there's nothing you can do, tutanyorosha wewe, hatuwezi kuachia mwizi. But I'm telling you, with the sort of anger that Kenyans have, the day a Kenyan is given a ballot paper like this, once he crosses against your name and puts it in the ballot box, that's the end of the day. That's the end of everything. So I want to assure Kenyans that this chest stamping should not scare anybody. Just come out and express yourself. Speak, because these constitutional freedoms that we enjoy, they were very hard fought. They were fought for by blood and sweat. You know, you can see that there's a lot of nostalgia from the old KANU hawks to go back to those days where you could just abduct someone and throw them into a prison without trial. But at least that was the law then. It was legal. There was a law that backed that detention without trial. But that law does not exist anymore. The constitution now requires that if you arrest somebody, you have to produce them to court within 24 hours and charge them. And you have to demonstrate to the magistrate why you need to hold them in custody. The reason why they are abducting these young people is because there is no law that exists that says you cannot insult a leader. There is no law that says that you cannot insult the president. In fact, our High Court has already said that the freedom of expression extends to insults. The freedom of expression does not mean I have to be nice to you. It doesn't mean that I am forced to say things that you want to hear. Freedom of expression means I have to speak the way I see things. And instead of them addressing, why are Kenyans so angry? How did we get here? Because after the president was elected in 2022, by all accounts, William Ruto was one of the most popular politicians in the country. What did he do in the intervening period to lead to a place where he's being insulted left, right, and center? Instead of addressing those questions, the cause, they are addressing the symptoms. And I can tell you, for as long as your policies and the actions of your government continue to make life more difficult for Kenyans, for as long as you don't demonstrate respect for the people, for as long as your court jesters, the ones you are talking about, are speaking to Kenyans in the way that they are speaking to them, then nobody is going to respect you. Respect is earned. It's not something you force. You cannot force people to respect you. Respect is earned from how you conduct yourself, how you relate with people, how you demonstrate respect for the people as required under Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So unfortunately for him, he is surrounded by people who have decided that they have to tear him down. They are going to take him down. If there is anybody to be blamed for the one-term presidency of Ruto, it will be Kamket, it will be Oscar Sudi, and the likes who are surrounding him there, giving him bad advice, including my uncle Oduor. Speeches from some of the leaders that you've mentioned. And of course, I saw what the Honorable Kamket said, and also the Honorable Oscar Sudi.
It is very keen. What Sifuna is saying is directly responding to a statement that we got from actually Oscar Sudi. And when you listen to what keenly the Edwin Sifuna is telling the president, these are kind of things, you know, sometimes those in power want to hear the good vibes. What Kamtet and Oscar Sudi said over the weekend, that hakuna mtu anaendanga 2 terms, is something that should worry the country. And why should those statements worry the country? Because of these 2 reasons. The voices of dissent are being crushed using extrajudicial means. And I like what Sifuna have said, that some of those things happened during Moi era simply because there was no law. You know, that time you could be tried, you know, detained without trial. Now the Constitution says you only need to be in detention for around 24 hours. After 24 hours, you should be produced in a court of law. And that is why the extrajudicial activities of putting people in communicado, rather in some sort of abduction chambers, borders on illegality. And in this era of 2025, I think the country's democracy has to grow, and these are some of the things that have to be weeded off. The threat was to electorates. The second reason why the country must be worried about the outbursts from Oscar Sudi and Kamket is recently there was a story about some ballot papers or some ID printing machine being sneaked from Uganda and brought in the country, especially in Eldoret, and it really caused jitters around the corridors here, while people are talking about an ID printing cartel, or rather an ID printing strategy that was in the loop as part of it. And I want to read a tweet from Wahome Thuku. He did 2 tweets. I think he's the one who released this statement. And yes, yesterday one of our subscribers was actually raising some pertinent question on this, and I could not do it. I could not just put up facts together. But when I saw the statement, this is one thing that crossed our mind. A new ID printing machine will be delivered next week, and the destination is Eldoret. It is a Maticas S5 5200G via Casarineta 9 6900 Lugano, Switzerland. That's the physical address of the purchase. Meanwhile, banks have been told to stop printing ATM cards at branch level because the same machines are now under control of XXX. It is the same machine which can print an ID card in small scale. he actually followed that post. I followed it with another one which said, "Hi Wakili, there is a change of plan. The new ID printing machine will first be delivered in Uganda this week, then transported as engine for tractors via Busia, Eldoret. It's an Matica S5200G Casarineta 96900 Lugano, Switzerland is the shipping address." This, if you look at, this statement came from Wahome Thuku. And Kenyans really raised some questions. Of course, there have been a problem of ID printing. And during Kithure Kindiki's era in the interior, this is one of the things that he was really working around to turn around so that it can be done faster. Now, with the discussion about tyranny of numbers, I saw Kenyans raising some questions that, are we going to print new IDs and manufacture some votes? There are so many serious questions that Kenyans asked on that issue of an ID printing machine being based in Eldoret. The big question should be, is it one? Why Eldoret? Is it part of a wider program? So one is, phase one probably is going to be in Eldoret, another one is going to be Nairobi, or another one in Mombasa. Probably Eldoret will be able to cover the western side. Of course, the Rift Valley and the western, the Nyanza side, and this other side of Nairobi. So this is one of the things that was raised. The other red alert on such statement from Sudi is that the administration or the current ruling class are adamant to constitute IEBC. And I kept on saying last year when we were raising the point on raising IBC, the question was, or the concern was, that we need to have IBC in time so that they start preparing for the next election. Remember, there is also a provision that after every 10 years, there should be a boundary review. So will someone go to court that we cannot conduct a general election before we do a boundary review? Remember, so many other even by elections are pending because we don't have an IBC. So the delay in constituting IBC towards the end of 2024, I saw civil society organizations, religious leaders, and some political players on the opposition benches really pushing the president that we need to form IBC. And of course, the ruling class trivialized the whole thing by blaming Kalonzo Musyoka, that is the person that has gone to court to stop constitution of IBC. For those three reasons, number one, on ID printing machine that is being brought from Uganda. Number two, the delay in reconstituting IBC and the suppression of the opinion of the dissenting voices. Those three reasons form a solid base why the country must be wary. But let me tell you, the likes of Oscar Sudi are talking with a lot of entitlement because those pronouncements thrive on these issues. Such a statement is coming because someone believes that if I have Raila Odinga on my back, then my presidency is going to be smooth. I'm going to have second term. And I look at that and say, fine, we really need to interrogate and we can ask, do you believe that if Raila comes today and say, Ruto Tosha, Ruto has gotten his second term, the only thing that is in that Ruto endorsement, or Raila endorsing Ruto, is some sort of legitimacy. So that even if you have a rigging scheme, then probably Raila would legitimize such rigging. And that is why I keep on insisting that even Uhuru Kenyatta should not endorse William Ruto. The people of Kenya, both Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, must keep off so that the population will face the president's track record. I like what president's handlers say. They say that Kenya Kwanza doesn't have a competitor. Kenya Kwanza's competitor is the scorecard. So if the country can peruse the scorecard and be convinced that they need to give Kenya Kwanza a second term, that should be the basis. The second point where these pronouncements are coming is because of feeling that Ruto team underestimates the impact of Rigathi-led rebellion in Mount Kenya. And let us face the figures, because our politics is not just based on antagonism and narratives and even these track records. You need to talk about the numbers. Now, if there is a question that I like asking, Mount Kenya gave Ruto nearly 50% of the vote that he got. Out of the 7.1 that Chebukati announced, some of us believe it did not even reach that 7.1. 3.6 came from Mount Kenya. And by that time, they didn't have a candidate. They supported someone else. So if Mount Kenya decides to redirect or rather reroute that vote to somewhere else, to another candidate, will Raila Odinga's constituency be able to bridge the gap? Remember, even within the Raila Odinga constituency, there are also voices, there are also rebelling voices. So I know by the fact that we were able to appoint some fellows from the Jubilee axis in cabinet, then people felt we have a broad-based, so we have a government of national unity. Now that is the other reason. The other third thing is, and I like what Caleb Amisi said. The inner circle, the Kenya Kwanza's inner circle believe that the president is very powerful and will stick to power whatsoever. Let me say this, and the public must not buy this fear. The best thing you should do is to go and vote. Make your choice be known in the ballot box. If Kenyans will vote to change regime, William Ruto will hand over power. And the likes of Sudi and Kamket, who believe that some of them are bigger than God, will be shocked. Just the same way Uhuru Kenyatta handed over power peacefully. Someone gave me a story, and he told me, the moment IBC announces election results, at that point, election ends there. And he told me, the reason why even Uhuru Axis never wanted Chebukati to announce results is because they knew the moment results are announced by the chairman of the IBC, who has the constitutional mandate to do it, these other institutions looks at the constitution and will tell Mr. President, this one has been announced, you have to leave. And to that point, even security organs are very wary on decisions, or rather on directives they make. If the president is announced to have lost the election and the country is demanding for a change on regime, no one will be demanding the IG. No one will be ordering the police to go and hit people. That regime, that era is slowly changing. I didn't believe him, but at least I trust his line of thought. Now, this threat of we will have to be here, whether we like it or not, are dead on arrival. The threats are dead on arrival. Why am I saying so? Well, Judet and Opondo Kaluma axis are struggling to wink the ODM folks in the village. The urban constituency, which the likes of Sifuna are representing. Sifuna represents two groups. He represents ODM in urban centers. He also represents the ODM who are enlightened folks, the middle class. So I can say this, that while someone believes that when you walk around with Kaluma and Junet and they are singing those praise songs around the president, That is what will happen. There is a constituency that will not board the ODM narrative. And again, let me say this. Raila Odinga saying Ruto tosha will be the end of Ruto. Acha nikae vizuri. Raila Odinga endorsing President Ruto will be the end of Kenya Kwanza for these three reasons. Number one, the backlash even within ODM is very strong. Raila Odinga had Kalonzo Musyoka for 15 years. They fell out with Kalonzo Musyoka, but Kalonzo Musyoka still supported him. Even the Kalonzo constituency that have been supporting Raila Odinga from eastern part will not side with William Ruto. That's number one. Number two, that will embolden the anti-Ruto wave. In fact, people need to remember that the central Kenya have been mobilized. The traditional mobilization scheme is to rise so that you vote against Raila Odinga. If Raila says Ruto tosha, Kenyans will come out in their numbers to vote to punish Raila. And Ruto is going to face that collateral damage. So that backlash, remember he faced backlash of saying Ruto tosha after Gen Z protest. And then you move ahead and say again Ruto tosha. Not so much. Number three, the Gen Z prison break in June shows the country it's possible. It's possible. I want to say this. The abductions of 5 Kenyans never caused a lot of anxiety in the country. It caused anxiety, but it did not pull people in a universal force. It did not create a big force. Compare that with finance bill. You need to ask, why did finance bill marshal the whole country? Because it is something that is attaching many people. The current change of regime, if an election is done and it is in the interest of the country to change regime, everyone will come out to protest. Lastly, even the international players that support Kenya Kwanza will easily abandon that cause. Remember, you are only useful when you are popular and you can push that agenda. But if you cannot push that agenda, there was a plan to push some vaccination thing here in December. The political class went quiet with it. They could not say it. They could not speak about it because the public said no. And it died some natural death. Probably after cabinet is appointed, it might resurrect. But that tells you the level of public pressure. The lobby groups, the pressure groups that are emerging to push the state on accountability edge cannot be underwhelmed. That is my take, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly subscribe to our channel and thank you very much for supporting us.